All right, good evening, everyone. You are highly welcome to today's Safeoclock Health and Safety Interactive Workshop. So we'll be starting with a brief presentation, like our culture has been. I will lead the presentation by talking about stockpile management safety. So that's the topic we are discussing today. So I will be sharing my view through the presentation slides I have already. So after that, we'll now open the floor for others to contribute, share their experience, and also ask questions. So we'll be able to answer the ones we can answer. The ones we cannot answer, we'll refer ourselves to research. All right. So what exactly is stockpile? Stockpile is, you can just say simply, is simply a temporary reserve area. We have in construction industry, also in mining industry, there are certain areas or locations that they reserve for temporary storing these materials. Okay, so some of the materials that are stored or stockpiled are soil and aggregates. So like gravel, sand, crushed stones, and other materials that they use for foundations and roadbeds. So these materials can be stockpiled. Another type of material that can be stockpiled is excavated materials. Like in construction industry, during excavation, there will be excavated soil. Those materials are part of the things that can be stockpiled. Like I was opportune to work in Qatar Rail during the construction of the metro, underground metro. So we were, during the construction stage or during the excavation stage, lots of excavated materials were removed and they could not be stored in the site. So we had a designated area known as MLPA. So that area is where you see all the excavated materials going to those locations to be stockpiled. So it was a very large area. And that is where I was able to see how stockpile is being managed. And if not properly managed, there are lots of hazards and there are lots of risks associated with that particular location alone. So excavated materials, those sands that are removed from excavations, when you have large projects, you can't keep those things in the site. So you need to have a temporary reserved area where you keep these things. And keeping them, you don't just keep them anyhow. You need to properly manage them for the sake of safety, for the sake of people working there, for the sake of people around that area, and to create it so that you will not create more hazards while trying to remove the hazard from your working area. So those are part of the things we'll be looking at today. Okay, so let's look at types of materials that will stockpile in the construction industry. We've talked about sand, talked about excavated materials, talked about gravel, crushed stones, topsoils, the topsoil to use for landscaping and during vegetation restoration. So you can stockpile them depending on the industry, depending on what you want to use it for. You keep them temporary in a particular area, and those stockpiled areas should be properly managed for safety. Excavated materials like soil or rock also are stockpiled and kept safely to prevent misuse, to prevent injury also. Now, let's look at some of the hazards associated with stockpile material or stockpile items. Okay, one of them is stability or collapse. So due to the type of soil, there is possibility of those stockpiled materials collapsing. There's possibility that it can fall. There's possibility that when it falls, if people are within that location, it can fall on them, depending on the height of the stockpile and depending on the type of material that was stockpiled. So that is one of the hazards associated with it. The moisture content also. The moisture content, when it increases, it can weaken the soil structure. So this will increase the possibility of collapse or the likelihood of collapse. Another hazard associated with this is slope angle. So it's required that if you have to stockpile these materials to a greater height, then you need to maintain proper sloping. So this proper sloping will help to ensure that the materials cannot easily collapse. So if the angle of the sloping is too steep, then it can easily collapse. And when it collapses, maybe during rainfall or maybe when there is change in weather conditions, so this can cause injury to people or someone around the vicinity. Another hazard associated with these stockpiles is the falling objects. Some of the materials that will stockpile can easily fall. It can easily get loose and fall off. Like rocks can be stockpiled as well. So when they get loose and they fall off, if they fall on anybody around that area, then could lead to crush injuries, other related injuries. Then equipment overturn. When you are stockpiling, you don't stockpile with bare hands. You use equipment, you use excavators, you use loaders. So in the process of tipping, they can get unstable, they can collapse, they can overturn. So overturning of equipment is another interesting hazard that is associated with stockpiling of materials. Now, the way you tip materials in a flat level area, or the way you tip materials in area that is very flat or that is not a stockpiling area is different. Okay, and the techniques that you use in tipping these materials should be properly communicated to the drivers or to these truck operators. Now, it's not advised, it's not recommended to tip the materials at the location where you are going to stockpile it. So that brings us to maybe a collision of equipment or collision of vehicles, because you will require a dozer to shift the stockpile materials from where it was tipped to the particular area where it's supposed to be arranged. Okay, so stockpiling is not something that you just do and you tip it with the truck and you move. The truck will tip it at a particular location. You use dozer to be able to move them to the right position where you need it. So collision of equipment is another hazard that is associated with this activity. All right, then limited visibility. You know that stockpiling involves taking these materials. In some cases, it gets to a very high, that you'll not be able to see the other side. So being able to see the other side is one of the challenges that people working inside this stockpiling area will face. Another thing that can cause loose visibility is dust. Depending on the material you are tipping, if you are tipping the excavated materials that is very sandy, you see that the dust could be emanating in the process of tipping the material. So in that process, there will be low visibility. The entire environment will be clouded with dust, and the truck driver and the equipment operators, if they face low visibility, then they might not be able to see each other. They can hit on somebody, maybe passing a pedestrian, it can get collided with. So low visibility is another hazard associated with stockpiling management. Unstable ground. During tipping of the materials, I have seen in situations where the truck got had to overturn due to unstable ground. This is one of the incidents that we witnessed during my work in that stockpiling area. You see that due to weather, maybe there was rain, or maybe the water used for dusting or maybe reducing the dust, okay, it became too much on a particular area. So making that particular area, the sand unstable. So as the truck comes to tip the material, it becomes unstable, the ground sinks, then the truck becomes unstable and it overturns. So unstable ground and overturning of equipment is one of the hazards that is associated with this stockpiling activity or stockpiling area. Now, environmental concerns and environmental conditions. Due to the materials you are stockpiling is coming from different locations, it's coming from different areas. So maybe it was gotten from an excavation where you have other mineral resources mixed in that area. So when you take it and you transfer it to another location, is an environmental concern in the sense that most of those aggregates or most of the excavated materials might contain other in non-environmental friendly materials that will be transported to that location. And in the process, we are contaminating the ground and we are also contaminating the water bodies because some of these things will be washed down during rainfall, during flooding, it will be washed down and taken to another location. Now, stockpiling area is always associated with erosion or flooding because you have indirectly prevented smooth flow of water. You have indirectly prevented the water taking its not natural course or its natural movement. Then it will find a way to accumulate in a particular area or it will find a way to escape. And in that process, it could be causing erosion in other locations. So this is one of the hazards associated with stockpiling activity and the stockpiling location. So what are the ways that we can mitigate the risk? One of them is proper site selection. So to have a stockpile location, you don't just pick any location and start stockpiling. You need to consider the site. Okay, you need to consider the traffic movement of the site. You need to consider the environmental factors in that location. You need to consider if there are water bodies that the stockpile area or the stockpiled materials will prevent easy flow of water, which will be causing erosion within that vicinity. You also need to consider the space. Depending on the size of the materials that you want to stockpile, you need to consider the space of the environment you have. Okay, so choosing a proper site will be the first step to ensure that the risk that will be associated with stockpiling can be prevented. Another way of mitigating the risk is proper slope design. Like I said before, stockpiling can go at a it can be as high as possible. But in order to prevent it from collapsing, in order to prevent materials falling off and hitting people below, you need to maintain proper sloping. This slope will ensure that the materials cannot easily fall, that the walls of the stockpile cannot easily collapse because it was properly sloped and the tip of the slope is not too high. It's on a proper angle. Okay. Then consideration of drainage system. Ensuring that you provide drainage around these stockpile materials will be proper to prevent water getting into the stockpile materials. And if water get into those aggregates, it can easily create path in between the aggregates, and this will make the walls of that stockpile area very loose, thereby increasing the chances of collapse. So that is why proper drainage is advised around the stockpile area to reduce the chances of water getting into the materials and making it loose. Okay, then regular inspection is very important. When you inspect the location, you are not just looking at if the materials are well stacked, you are also looking at cracks on the wall. You are looking at the movement of equipment. You are also looking at proper storage of these materials. So inspections is very important so that you'll be able to identify any hazard or any risk that is still developing. Now, another thing that can be done is use of barriers. If you're able to erect barriers around the stockpile material, depending on the size, erecting these barriers will help to ensure that people that are not authorized, unauthorized persons do not have access to the stockpile materials. You can also put signage to caution people, signify what is being stockpiled, the depth, what the harm that could come. So putting up proper signage and proper notices around the stockpile area is very important also to warn off the pedestrians and publics, even children as well. Now, having a proper emergency preparedness plan is very important because anything can happen. And like we always say that we are not praying for incident to happen, but we should be prepared. So having an emergency plan is very important, not just in the construction area, but in the stockpile area, we need to have emergency plan. Emergency plan of what to do if there is a collapse, what to do if the stockpile materials collapses, what to do if there is equipment collision in the area, what to do if emergencies, fire emergency. So if emergency occurs in the stockpiling area, the actions to take, how to reach the emergency services. Because in most situations, the stockpile areas are located at a outskirts of the town, very far away, because you need massive space. So by so doing, you are very far away from emergency services and you are very far away from emergency response team. So having your own emergency plan in place will help you to identify these conditions or maybe these lapses that you have in place, and putting in place proper measures to take in case of emergency. So these are some of the measures that we can put in place to ensure that stockpile areas are safe. Okay, so just like we do, I've just shared a brief presentation and I will give room for others to discuss. And we want to hear from people who have had experience working in stockpile areas, stockyards, areas where they put excavated materials, how you were able to manage it to prevent safety, and if possible, incidents that has occurred, how you were able to manage it or what led to those incidents. So these are type of things that we can talk about to help increase our knowledge on this topic. All right, thank you for listening. So the floor is open now. Anyone that wants to take it up can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear
Good
me?
evening, sir. Welcome.
Good
Happy
yes.
New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you.
Stephen is here, yes?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here.
Ah,
I saw you. I saw you in UAE. Yeah?
welcome, the council member, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, boss.
Okay. So I think you have already said everything about the stock buys. Most people don't understand that stockpiles, it's not just excavated materials. It could also mean backfill materials. It could be road fill. It could be road-based materials. So stockpiles involve a lot. And this is where we need to understand clearly what involvement of stockpiles we need to deal with. For any stockpile, which could be road-based material, road materials, excavated materials, backfill materials, for any stockpile to be kept anywhere, it has to be authorized by the authorities, it has to be planned, and it has to be controlled. No person in Qatar can keep stockpiles illegally. There are procedures to take to keep stockpiles, either in the contractor's work area. Even when within the contractor's work area, it needs to be authorized. Otherwise, the ministry, MME, and the Baladia would always come in. Also, it needs to be licensed, that it is approved, it has met all the requirements, and then it needs to be extensively planned to manage, especially the dust coming out from the stockpiles, in the case of excavated materials. And after that, whatever area it is kept, whether it's a rented area, it's a road walk area, it is the facility management area, it needs to be controlled. You talked about having barriers around stockpiles. Having barriers around stockpiles goes beyond just controlling that area. It also prevents the stockpiles or the excavated materials from seeping out in the event of heavy weather, bad inclement weather, or in the event of rain. I've seen a number of times where the stockpiles fall down or start flowing off, and it gets away from the demarcated area. Even with the concrete barriers, they still get out. And also there's a requirement for the height of all stockpiles in Qatar. I think we should also check that. I'm not sure what the QCS says, but I've known that many a time we've been told that it should not exceed 3-meter height. If it exceeds 3-meter height, then there's another requirement for it. And also then you need to cover it, you need to isolate it, you need to prevent it from public view, you need to carry out regular dust suppression, you need to carry out air monitoring, mitigation, and then if there are nuisance within that area, you need to have a mitigation plan to deal with it, as to prevent create these stockpiles creating a nuisance to the public. So it involves a lot. So for whoever is having stockpiles, please ensure that it's authorized, the area is licensed, and it's controlled. Many a time we've seen, not just in Qatar, outside Qatar again, stockpiles. People look at it that it's just light materials. This is not true. If you don't manage it properly and you are going to get materials from it or get items from it or do something within that area, there's a chance that person could be buried alive. So that is why it needs to be controlled. Whoever is going in, it's like an in and out register, sign in and sign out. People keep record of who has gone in. And if the person doesn't come out within a period of time, they need to raise the red flag. Because these stockpiles, I've had some experience on it. Stockpiles, excavated material, road materials, those ones are heavy materials. But when it comes to the light materials, which we call the excavated materials, if someone gets in the wrong way, he might not get out alive. So it's important that we know clearly that it needs to, all stockpiles or excavated materials or road materials which are kept in an area, in a holding area called a stockpile area, needs to be authorized. It needs to be, the area needs to be licensed. There need to be adequate plans in place to mitigate whatever risk that would be associated with that activity, and it needs to be controlled. very clearly. Anything apart from this, actions could be taken, people would be held accountable, and I don't wish to say, but if there's a fatality in the event of poor management of stockpiles and excavated materials, of course, actions will be taken, people will be held responsible, and people will be made to pay for their actions or inactions, clearly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Valentine, for always sharing your wealth of experience with us. See, the stockpile management is, I would say, is one of the least talked about, because in some situations, they don't even involve safety. They think that is a normal thing. Just send a truck there and keep it there. And I've witnessed an incident, one of the most serious incidents we had during the metro construction was in our stockpile area. Okay, so it's very, very, because there's less attention to that area, even the management, the walkthroughs, the client visitations, they don't get to those locations. They just think it's waste storage areas. And because there is less attention to those areas, safety in those areas are not taken serious, and there is more chances of incident in those locations. So stockpiles and stockpile areas should be taken more serious, even as we take our workplaces serious as well. So thank you, Mr. Valentine, for lending your voice.
In addition to that, especially like you talked about stockpile management areas, I consider this a very high risk activity. I don't know why people, like what you said, people pay less attention to it. They think that any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go and take stockpiles, put stockpiles and walk away. It's not like that, because there are simultaneous operations around there. There is heavy plant and machineries around there. There is confined space activities because of limited space around there. There is also the issue of environmental related issues. There's dust management. So there are too many things. And I've seen some here outside, I think that was in Kuwait a few years ago, where people were walking within a stockpile area. An excavated material area, that they put this excavated material in a trench. They want to use it for backfilling. And unfortunately, some people went into the trench as well to be able to level the excavated materials across the trench, then they can start finishing the work. Unfortunately, because one of the excavated materials, because of the rains, it became impermeable. It became very loose. Somebody slipped into it. And the other guy did not know until they started backfilling. Then they realized, where is this other guy? And then they started searching. And fortunately, he came out. But however, he was hospitalized for a very long time, because this is what I say about the light materials. Excavated materials, people take it like nothing. There's no risk. But when it rains, especially heavy rains, or when people have used too much water for dust suppression to mix it, it becomes this another story. It's at that point in time, it is something else. So very clearly, excavated materials, stockpile management is one of the biggest hazards we have in the construction industry. If we don't take it as serious as confined space work, as plant and machinery work, as simultaneous operation work, then definitely bad things will happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for lending your strong voice on this. I'm glad most of our team are here, and we should pay more attention to this as we pay attention to other activities as well. All right. The floor is open. We can get contribution from others.
Stephen is here, yes. We expect him to step in.
I am here, and I would say the two bosses have they've learned their voice on this topic, and you guys have really, for me, I would just say I have learned a lot. I don't have anything to contribute at the moment, but just to thank Mr. Johnson and Mr. Valentine for making their input into this discussion. Really, personally, I've learned one or two things which I don't know before, because the truth is that when we work as a professional, I think this knowledge of a thing, learning, like they say, learning is a continuous process. It doesn't end until we die. So I can't say I know everything. I can't say every professional knows everything. That is why this platform is here for us to learn from such people's experience. If you look at what Mr. Valentine have said, what Mr. Johnson have said so far, they speak from experience, from their previous site or site they visited. So for me, I would just say I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, which I can apply anywhere I have the opportunity to manage and stockpile and all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our IOSH chairman. No, I don't mean IOSH Qatar branch chairman. No, I mean he's our lead here representing us in UK. So whatever
He's
we,
an
whatever we need.
He's an IOSH council member.
I know he's an IOSH council member. So whatever we need from
He's a
here,
very
Stephen is there
important guy.
to bring it for us.
He's a very important guy.
I'm just humble, just representing us.
Yes. Do we have any further contribution? Andrew is there. I don't know if he's already back home. Mr. Jackson, your network was very unstable today.
Hello, my people.
Yes, Andrew. Happy New Year. Welcome.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Good to see your face, Mr. Johnson, Stephen, and Sunday, Valentine, Jackson. Good to see you all. I want to thank you for the well-presented topic today. As Mr. Stephen have said, at least I've learned one or two things, and it's a good beginning. I believe that this year will be much better, and we are moving forward. And I really want to thank you for the resilience and the efforts you and everyone is putting to this platform. Thank you, and by God's grace, we all are going to do much better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. Thank you. And, I must sincerely appreciate Mr. Valentine for his weight of experience that he brings his time to share with us. From my own observation, I won't say that he's here to learn. He's here to always give out what he already knows. So we appreciate your time.
Johnson, I'm learning like everyone. Learning, according to Stephen, learning is a continuous process. In the process of teaching or mentoring, you are also learning. So I'm learning, and I'm happy to join this platform most all the time if I'm available, and because I get a lot from that. No person's an island of himself.
Yes, that's correct.
You need to learn, and you progress, which helps you to become better as you move on.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Jackson, your network is okay? I don't think Nigeria allowed him to be comfortable in network today. All right, so the floor is open. Do we have any other person that want to contribute? If not, we can call it a day. Can go and regurgitate on the ones we've heard already. Okay, I think there is no further contribution. And it's almost 7. So a word they say is enough for the wise. It's not about the length of time, but about the quality of what is learned. So in absence of that, we'll call it a day for today. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. We'll see you again next week.